Welcome, everyone, to the Obtuse Angles podcast with Kyle and Jeremy. Kyle Fields, former indie worker, current stand-up comedian, podcaster, by God, radio broadcaster. Jeremy, bam, bam, boom, boom, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Iron Mike, the professor, the southern dandy, flyboy, the golden child. 10 minutes on either side of putting a ham in the smokehouse stack. Holy Sutherland. Also, a former indie worker, podcaster, IT man to the dangle stars. And today, what a novel idea for this podcast. He's also my tag team partner as we give a doomsday device to the worst wrestling angles of all time. Jeremiah, what's going on?
In that scenario, can I be Animal? I don't know if I'm still going to be in one piece coming off the top rope like Hawk.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I just assumed. I assumed that you'd be the guy, holding up the dude that I clothesline off you. I never took that move. Both of us, as we mentioned here in the show, I'll speak for myself. I had a wrestling career in which I accomplished absolutely nothing, but I did it independently for about 5 years for, on or off, came back, blah, 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 won a battle royal last year, looking at my trophy right now. That's not the point of this, how great I am. The point is I never did that move. I remember my second match ever, they asked me. The guys we were working, they said, "Hey, we're going to end it. Can we give you a doomsday device?" And I went, "No, no."
No.
I didn't even
not
think
at
about
all.
it. It's a dangerous move, and I know the guys do it every Monday and every Wednesday, and those are the best athletes, the best wrestlers in the world, right? And again, there are some great independent workers in Kentucky, and then there are some not so great independent, and it's a dangerous move, man. That move is the reason that Bret Hart created his finisher that he had with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, the heart attack, where Neidhart would hold the guy up and then Bret would hit the ropes and clothesline the guy, because every time Bret Hart saw the Legion of Doom do the Doomsday device, he was like, someone's going to get killed. Someone's going to get killed. Because in order to do it, like if you're giving it to me, obviously you got me in kind of an electric chair position. I'm sitting on your shoulders, and then somebody comes off and they clothesline me, and then you would have to push my legs up so I backflip and then land safely on my stomach flat coming down to the mat. That's scary.
Yeah.
That's a scary situation.
You got to look at it like this, though. If there's anybody in the business you want, like if you had to pick one wrestler and say, I would like to sit on this wrestler's shoulders and then be backflipped off of him entirely by him, you would pick Animal, right?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt. But the thing is, sometimes Animal would push him a little too much.
Yeah.
Because, you saw those squash matches where, the Road Warriors, LOD, whatever you want to call them, they would literally pick up jobbers and fling them 6 rows into the crowd. Like, they gave no fucks. Like, the Mulkey brothers, one of them died one night. I'm just going to start making up stories. One of the Mulkey brothers.
Well, that was the thing. Like, Hawk was supposed to pull that clothesline so that way Animal completely controls the bump, and that is not what happens. You've got Animal trying to control the bump and giving it all this force, and you have Hawk hitting those motherfuckers like they owe him money, so they'll over-rotate and land like on their ass. They're doing like 540s, 540 degrees of...
I'd love to see Hulk do a little bit too much coke one night. Give me the doomsday device, brother. And I don't know if Hulk... Well, I was going to say I don't know if he ever did coke, but he talked about it in his book. So yeah, we know he did a little bit of coke, which should shock no one who ever saw the Hulkster do a promo. Let me tell you, half those goddamn promos in the 80s, both the nostrils were bleeding.
Yeah.
We talked before, we did an episode about the movie that Hulk not only starred in, but co-wrote with Vince McMahon in the 80s called No Holds Barred. Go back, check that episode out in the archives. And
eat your heart out, Hollywood.
In his book, Hogan talked about how they spent a weekend in a hotel room writing that.
The only way you write a book or a script in a hotel room over the course of a weekend, it's entirely cocaine. It's entirely cocaine.
In the 80s? In the fucking 80s, for
It's
God's
not
sake?
it's not a balanced diet and 8 hours of sleep. It is 100% pure, uncut Colombian cocaine.
So go back and check out that episode. And again, all of the other hashtag Evergreen Man material. We do a shit ton of true crime. We do a shit ton of profiles on celebrities, pop culture, all the like, and tons of old school wrestling way back in the archives. We are new every single Monday, where we are delivered directly to your digital doorstep. Spotify, Apple Podcast Addict, everywhere in between. Hit the subscribe button, set it, and forget it, baby girl. All at obtuseangles.libsyn.com. The reason that we wanted to revisit bad pro wrestling angles on this episode is Sunday. So I guess by the time you're listening to this, if you listen when it drops, dear listener, and I'm sure that you do, I'm sure that there are listeners who literally don't get out of bed until 6 p.m. when the new episode fucking hits the streets, yo.
No.
So as you're listening to this on Monday, the Royal Rumble, one of my favorite pay-per-views of the year, was on Sunday. And JRE, the Joe Rogan Experience, I call it Joe Rogan Experience. Jeremy calls it JRE because he's one of those bros that listens to it while he fucking, wakes up and hates himself every morning. Undertaker was just on the Joe Rogan Experience talking about when he first debuted that night. It was also the debut of one of the most infamously bad wrestling characters of all time, the Gobbledygooker, and the Undertaker was afraid that he was going to hatch out of a giant egg. That might have derailed his career just a little bit. What do you think?
Isn't that insanity? That is just so crazy to think about. You, on one show...
That two icons?
Yeah, you have the best gimmick of all time, arguably, being introduced on a show, and also at the same time, arguably the worst gimmick of all time. And it's all in one company, on one show, in 1 month, on one pay-per-view. That's insane, right?
That is crazy. Yeah. I mean, honestly, and when we say the worst gimmick of all time, I don't think that's an understatement. I mean, WrestleCrap.com, which is, goddamn, it pretty much invented making fun of bad wrestling for comedy purposes on the internet. They've been around forever. The big guy over there is R.D. Reynolds, and he created the yearly Gobbledygooker Award for the worst angle of every year. So, like, instead of called, the Oscar, it's the Gobbledygooker. So that's how bad.
Yeah.
That's how bad. And I would honestly, in terms of Vince McMahon's creations, motherfucker didn't create Hulkamania. That was an AWA. So, Undertaker. It's got to be Undertaker. Undertaker is the greatest Vince McMahon character of all time.
Which Undertaker was your favorite? Like, in terms of the gimmick itself changing throughout the years? Like, what was your favorite gear, your favorite Undertaker gear, and your favorite Undertaker gimmick style?
I feel like Michael Bolton sitting there being interviewed in Office Space, where he's like, I guess I kind of like them all. I really do like them all. You know what? It wouldn't be the biker gimmick, even though the biker gimmick was made totally justified for me.
I hated it so much.
I know, but you know what? If he never would have became a biker, we never would have gotten that one segment where Tommy Dreamer was doing that one gimmick where he would like drink the water out of urinals and he would just do disgusting shit. And he comes out to the ring and Undertaker had this goddamn big ass chaw in his mouth, this big old chunk of tobacco. And Tommy asked if he could drink the Undertaker's tobacco juice. And before Tommy even drinks it, Taker spits the tobacco and it's all real. It's not fake. And Tommy takes a big swig of it. I'm just describing it and you're freaking out right now. That's good TV.
It really is. I got to go with the purple trim Undertaker. When he first lost the mullet and grew all of his hair out long, and then he started wearing the gimmick with the purple trim, like the dark purple
because
and black.
That was when... And then remember Mabel, because Mabel injured about 15 people a night back in the day. Mabel broke his orbital socket one night, and when he came back, he wore like a Phantom of the Opera protective mask over his face. That was pretty fucking cool.
Right, yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, again, we talked about it before. We had a whole episode on the best wrestling themes, and his Dark Side Ministry Evil Devil Worshipper 99 theme is my favorite. Like, we should just play that right now, a little bit of it. I even have people go back and listen to that episode and message us and be like, "You're right, man, that fucking Dark Side theme was awesome." So yeah.
Uncle Vinny gonna sue, be careful. Right,
Fuck,
but
man,
with 50-50 booking, aren't you never gonna you're never gonna see an Undertaker character
Absolutely.
or a Brock Lesnar
Absolutely.
type character, which some could make the argument that that's probably a good thing, myself included, but you're never going to see a huge,
but that's
larger than life character
Brock
like
Lesnar,
that anymore,
though.
Right?
Whether or not you like Lesnar or you don't, and I know plenty of people don't, I love the guy. He at least, he stands out because he's booked like a goddamn monster. Now that is because he wrestles 5 times a year and he makes $80 million a fucking minute in a match. But, but guess what? In your mind, he's at the top of the card. The rest of the guys are just guys. When you win one, you lose one. You win one, you lose one. You win one, you lose one. None of the shit fucking matters. And that's why The Undertaker fucking killed it. I mean, you remember, like, nobody beat The Undertaker. Right. Fucking no. Do you remember we mentioned it in a previous episode, 95 Royal Rumble, where The Undertaker finally lost a casket match. And 11 guys had to come out from the back and beat up The Undertaker. And he still fought them off. And it wasn't until they stole the goddamn urn and the urn fell over and a green smoke came out of the urn that The Undertaker's powers diminished. And he slumped over and they put him in the coffin. And as it went down the aisle, he appeared on the entrance screen. And then he said he would never rest in peace. And he ascended to the heavens. And The Undertaker, which totally wasn't Marty Jannetty dressed as The Undertaker, ascended to the heavens.
You might be the biggest wrestling fan I've ever met in my entire life.
Dude, it's the best thing ever, but the best thing ever was not the gobbledygooker, which brings us full circle. It happened at the 1990 Survivor Series pay-per-view, Jeremy. And again, the reason that the gobbledygooker is thought of as just such a shitty idea was that Vince wanted a wrestling mascot. You know how even WCW had Wildcat Willie. WCW Wildcat Willie. Yeah, it took me about 35 years to figure that out. But Wildcat Willie, like when the commercials would play and, there'd be like music and Wildcat Willie would come out and pump up the crowd and shit. That's what Vince wanted with the gobbledygooker. Now, why he wanted a big turkey on a month that wasn't November, I have no fucking idea, but he did. Rather than like introduce the gobbledygooker at a house show or, whatever, they brought out this big goddamn egg on TV for weeks and weeks. And the idea was, what's in the egg? Fucking Mean Gene even said, is it the Playmate of the Month? And the crowd goes, woo! All these horny motherfuckers. And the egg breaks open, and instead of, being some cool character like The Undertaker, which would have been horrible, but, at least it would have been cool, it was a giant turkey. And the crowd immediately turns on it.
Do you remember the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? When it comes to wrestling, what came first, the gobbledygooker or the Abdullah the Butcher? Do you remember it was right around the time when they were doing that gimmick where they pushed the black box out to the ring?
Yeah.
And then eventually Abdullah the Butcher came out and he had to feud with Cactus Jack, which was probably the closest thing to IWA or Japanese wrestling you were going to get
you're right.
on American TV at the time. And it was a dope angle, a dope feud, but it was tame. It was, it was bananas, but it was tame at the same time for WCW TV.
This all intertwines with another episode that we had, the electric chair match. What was it? It was the Chamber of Horrors. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah, yes.
We did a whole episode on this. So this was a match where it all took place inside of a cage. And in order to lose, there were like 2 teams. You had one member from a team had to be placed in the electric chair, strapped into it, and then they had to flip a switch on the cage to send a jolt of electricity through the man. Now, and again, as a child, I'm not gonna lie, that was the coolest fucking shit ever. Like, that was the coolest shit ever.
Well, the problem, as you were about to say, the problem with this whole angle is that they use this exact same means to kill people in capital punishment. Is that where you were going with this? Because I can't think of anything probably more noteworthy to mention is the fact that they use this method to kill killers.
No, they didn't. That is not the problem. The problem was that the switch, unfortunately, had already fallen because it was a gimmick anyway. So Rick Steiner had to pick the switch back up like it was a goddamn AC/DC album cover. And he had to... And then he had to flip it again like that meant something. Like, some pyro went off and Abby died or whatever. But he didn't die. He didn't fucking die. He's got electrocuted and the match was over with. I'll be honest with you. I think that the Chamber of Horrors match needs to come back. I would watch it tomorrow. I'd watch it tonight. Tell me you wouldn't watch
I just can't
that.
do it, man. It's so... Maybe it was different when I was a kid. It was a lot easier to suspend disbelief, but I don't know if I can do it anymore.
Dude, come on. You're telling me that you didn't love like the electrified cage match in NWA when they did that? You don't remember that?
No, I think wrestling fan, the internet is, there's a different breed of wrestling fan these days. And I think any promotion that tried to do anything so over the top like that would just be laughed right out of business.
Because here's the difference. Wrestling promotions are still doing over-the-top stuff, but they're approaching it like it's comedy, as opposed to wrestling in the 80s where they would do this outlandish shit, and they sold it with a straight face, which made it simultaneously so much better and so much worse. But come on, you tell me that moment wasn't great where they had the electrified cage match, and the motherfucker caught on fire, and Muda had to spit the mist out on the cage to put the fire out?
Well, that was the Thunderdome cage match, and I'm going to tell you right now, that was one of my favorite matches of all time. And looking back on it now, I didn't realize this as a kid when I watched it because I was maybe, when was that, 88? So I was 7 years old or so, give or take. One of the coolest things looking back on that was the way Muda sold it. He sold that match so well. Like, he would climb the cage, and then he would pretend like he got shocked if he climbed a little too far, and he would suck on his fingers. It was amazing, the selling of that, and Sting going up, and Sting getting electrocuted in the top of the Thunderdome cage. Somehow, WCW electrifying the top 4 feet of a cage seems more plausible than putting Abdullah the Butcher in an electric chair and having him fucking ride the lightning. Like having Tom Hanks and the rest of the fucking Frank Darabont.
WCW was literally selling, we're going to kill a man on pay-per-view. See, here's my problem, though, is they should have went the Ernest goes to jail route where, you remember that movie where he got electrocuted and then he didn't die, but he got superpowers and he got magnetic all of a sudden?
I'm going to tell you the problem with pay-per-views back then is that if I'm going to get in my car and drive all the way down to the cable company, pay $60 for a little box, drive it all the way back home, spend 2.5 hours on the phone with the cable company trying to figure out how to hook it up to my old Zenith floor model TV, and then watch a pay-per-view. Damn it to fucking hell, somebody better die in that pay-per-view. I want to see a man dead. I want to see his wife and children crying at his fucking grave. I want to see something amazing.
When I watched the last, I guess it was 2 AEW pay-per-views ago, that was the one where Matt Hardy, did you see this? Matt Hardy was on a scissor lift wrestling Sammy Guevara, and he took one of the scariest fucking bumps I've ever seen in my life. He fell off the scissor lift, and he was supposed to go through one of the 4 tables that were set up, and he did, but he overshot it just a bit, and he smacked the back of his goddamn head on the concrete. Did you see this?
No, I missed that.
It looked so bad that if he didn't get up and died at that moment, I wouldn't have been shocked. Like, it was fucking... I'm serious.
Was it worse than the New Jack Vic Grimes off the scaffold?
You know, it theoretically could have been. And again, we talked about this too in an episode, Wrestling's Worst Injuries. New Jack, who we could do 15 episodes on alone. Goddamn Dark Side of the Ring just did a whole hour on him, a fantastic hour a couple months ago. New Jack, craziest motherfucker alive, was working Vic Grimes, who is this gigantic fat white man. I mean, he's just a fucking cue ball of a guy. And they're supposed to do this spot, and you know this story better than me, where they both are supposed to take a tumble off of the scaffold, right? But Vic Grimes gets scared.
Yeah, he does. He gets scared and doesn't want to go. So instead of New Jack working around it and trying to figure out a way to get him ready to take this bump, New Jack reaches in his pocket, takes out a taser, tases him on the back of his fucking neck. Come on, Vic, we're going, and throws himself off and takes him with him. And in doing that, he winds up pulling Vic Grimes on top of him, and New Jack lands flat on his back. His head hits the concrete. At the same time, the front of his head is being squished by Vic Grimes. So his head gets squished between Vic and the concrete, and it ruptured something with his eye, made his eye protrude from his head, fucked him up real bad. He had nosebleeds and headaches.
Brain fluid.
Leaking brain fluid, yeah.
Yeah, and according to him, he still can't see all the way out of one of his eyes. I mean, it fucked him up hard. Now, I don't know if you're confusing the two stories, though, because I don't know if I heard that he used the taser that time.
No, you're right. You're right. He used the taser during the scaffold match.
God, because in wrestling, if somebody dies, almost dies, you got to have a rematch. So they do they do a rematch of this, and the rematch winds up being scarier than the actual match,
right?
Because then Jack is so pissed at Vic for fucking up last time. He fucking tases him on top of this swinging scaffold above the ring, throws him up because there is like a pyramid of tables set up under the ring. And that is supposed to be the quote-unquote safe way of falling off, right? The tables break your fall.
Right.
Jack literally admits to trying to murder Vic Grimes by throwing him off. And he tried to throw him off the scaffold, over the ropes, and onto the concrete floor. But he hits the ropes, he fucking straddles it, bounces up in the air like Super Mario off a trampoline, and then goes face down like a javelin into the... Like, it was this... Oh, watch this if you haven't seen it. Jeremy, there is one wrestling storyline that is so universally reviled, so gloriously over the top, and also horrible simultaneously, that it was literally the first episode of the Obtuse Angles podcast. When we started a podcast where we covered the worst wrestling angles of all time, we thought it was just appropriate to start with the legend of Katie Vick.
And isn't that beautiful when you think back on that? We had known each other, about a week before we recorded that first episode?
Before we took the plunge. I still wonder every day if I made a mistake. You know how it is. Yeah, you're not as pretty as you used to be.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
true.
saying?
That is true, yeah.
Let's talk about October 7th, 2002. That was the episode where Triple H takes out Kane's tag team partner, the Hurricane, backstage. And this is from IWNerd.com. As a result, this left Kane alone to defend the WWE tag team titles in the main event. This is a hell of a TLC match, by the way. Go check this out even if it's been a while. Great match. JR called this by himself, which, anyway, let's continue. Kane is able to win the match, but was interrupted by Triple H. Triple H claimed that he knew what Kane's secret was and asked him if the name Katie Vick rings a bell.
Oh.
He says that 10 years ago, Kane killed her and he's a murderer. Now, keep in mind, we have never heard the name Katie Vick before. And it's not like this is some character that was, there. No, it's just, it came out of nowhere, right? So again, there's this badass tag team TLC match on Raw. Triple H comes out. We hear that Kane's a murderer. That makes no fucking sense. We're already off to a weird ass fucking start. And furthermore, if we're talking kayfabe and we're talking what's going on here, Kane was a child fathered by the portly Paul Bearer who banged the Undertaker's mother while he wasn't looking. And then The Undertaker, of course, set the funeral home on fire. We know that because Paul Bearer was friends with The Undertaker's parents again. And then Kane, who was so hideously injured, unbeknownst to The Undertaker, was placed in an insane asylum where Paul Bearer infected his head by telling him that The Undertaker knew he was alive and wouldn't come see him. So, of course, we're told Kane leaves the insane asylum in 1997 and then becomes a professional wrestler. But now, suddenly none of that happened? Come on!
So at what point did Kane lose his license to practice dentistry?
I forgot. That's right. Yeah. Because see, again, before this, the wrestler and Kane, we probably, out of all the bad wrestling storyline episodes we did, 14 of them involved Kane, bless his heart. Glenn Jacobs, the guy who plays Kane, who is currently, believe it or not, the goddamn mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, isn't wrestling fucking weird. But before that, he played a bunch of wrestling characters. One was the Christmas Creature, which was, there's actually a video on our YouTube where we watched that. There was also he played a guy called the Unabomber. Goddamn wrestling stupid. Because the Christmas Creature was a monster that came out once a year to fight Jerry Lawler, and the Unabomber was a terrorist. But he also, before that, he played, fake Diesel. Because but before he's fake Diesel, goddamn.
Wait, it was a creature that came out once a year to fight Jerry Lawler. So they just ripped off Eddie Gilbert's character then.
That's one for you old school Memphis marks right there. You got 19 guys in their 60s in Lexington laughing their ass off at that joke. He was an evil wrestling dentist. Isaac Yankem. Yes, I Yankem. DDS. Again, this is Vince McMahon. If you could spend days just on the psyche of Vince McMahon and how Vince McMahon has somehow became a billionaire booking wrestling all in spite of himself. Does that make any sense? He's the greatest promoter ever, ever. But in terms of putting pencil to paper and having ideas or okaying.
Well, he's playing a numbers game. I mean, if you throw enough shit at the wall, eventually something's going to stick.
Like The Undertaker. Who thought a turkey coming out of a goddamn egg would make people
What
throw
about
babies
Chili
in the air?
McFreeze or whatever, the guy that was real popular in the 90s? Old Fang McFrost. Oh, what was his name?
How do you remember those? I look at Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes, because they made me laugh so fucking much. For some reason, they just stuck with me.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he created the character, after he was the ringmaster, another Vince McMahon idea. See, again, Vince goes, "Hey, you're gonna be the ringmaster," and Steve Austin goes, "I think I'm gonna be Stone Cold," and then Vince McMahon makes $1 billion.
What was so funny about that to me was they saw all of his promo work as Stunning Steve in WCW. They saw all the amazing, some of the best promo work ever done in WCW
ever,
and
ever.
Yes. And then when he comes to WWE, they're like, well, I just don't think he's ready to work on a microphone. Let's put him in a gimmick, call him the ringmaster, and we'll give him a mouthpiece.
Dude,
what the fuck?
Stone Cold, obviously Stone Cold in WWF was the best thing ever. Obviously. I had 20 fucking action figures, t-shirts, all the fucking bells and whistles. But I loved his promo work in ECW before he made that jump, you said, because it wasn't Stone Cold. And again, Stone Cold was the money character, but his ECW stuff, he hadn't leaned into the redneck thing yet, and he was just more of a kind of psycho. I have to beat you, Mikey Whipwreck. And he gets all fucking intense and shit. And I love when he's talking about how see, some of y'all can go to work, throw a cheese sandwich in a lunch pail. That's not me, man. You felt it.
Dude, I just got chills. How big of a fucking mark am I? I just got chills.
I can give you chills by performing a 25-year-old Stone Cold promo, and you haven't felt anything in 5 months. Think about that.
That's the sad part.
What's so sad? So anyway, Triple H comes out. He says, "Kane, you killed a bitch. Her name is Katie Vick." Kane's like, "OMG, motherfucker." We also find out, Jeremy, that the story behind this the next week was that Kane He wasn't in an insane asylum like we had been told all those years. He was an up-and-coming, independent, professional wrestler with this beautiful girl named Katie Vick. And see, they went to a party one night, and Kane was sober, but Katie Vick got drunk, and she said, Kane, can you drive my car? By the way, I'm not making this up. Kane, can you drive my car? So Kane goes, sure. But Kane wasn't familiar with a stick shift, and he rolled the car, and then Katie died. So the cops found semen, Jeremy, on Katie Vick's body. And Triple H obviously posits the question, did he make love to Katie when she was alive? Or did he wait and do it to her after she was dead? Wrestling.
Why? Why would there be semen on a body in a car accident? He posed a perfectly reasonable question. Did he not?
So hold on. Obviously, the implication of this storyline, because Triple H was the bad guy and Kane was the good guy, was that Triple H somehow dug up this horrible information about Kane and then accused him of something that would just tear open this old wound. But what you're saying is the way the information was presented, Kane definitely had sex with that dead body.
It's perfectly reasonable to wonder why a body that was just rolled in a car accident has cum all over it. Absolutely. If this were a real situation on Forensic Files, the very first question that the detective would ask would be, did you have sex with this woman before or after she was dead? Because there's no question. Did you have sex with her is not the question. Clearly you did. There's cum all over her. Did you do it before the wreck or after the wreck for the sake of the timeline?
I don't think it was like all over her sweater and shit. I think it was like I don't know. You're right. Honestly, that's a really good question. That's a really good question.
I'm picture she looks like someone held her upside down by the ankle and dipped her in like an 80-gallon drum of cum. And then that's how I picture Kane coming. There's just so much of it for some reason.
Like that's her Achilles heel.
Yeah. They grabbed her by the heel and dipped her in a barrel of cum.
October 21st, 2001, Triple H then shows some video footage of Katie Vick's funeral on the next week of Raw. Triple H was dressed wearing a Kane mask as he addressed the body in the coffin. I gotta admit, this is the funniest shit I've ever seen. People talk about how bad this is. And again, did this have a place on a wrestling show watched by children? Absolutely not. Was this funny in a perverse way? I thought it was a gas.
Yeah.
Triple H is like, I've got footage of this. And they play a warning because I guess USA Network made them play a warning before they showed this. It's obviously Triple H in the Kane mask, and he's wearing a t-shirt that says big freaking machine. And he's talking, and there's an open casket, and it's a blow-up doll wearing a cheerleader outfit.
Yeah, it is.
And then he starts grabbing the blow-up doll's tits, and they pixelate it, which makes it even more disturbing. I don't know why.
Well, there was the part where he also grabbed the blow-up doll's hand while the blow-up doll went to bed, and then he used the blow-up doll's hand to jerk off with.
Yeah. Anything that makes you not talk about a fucking air fryer, I'm okay with. We talk about all these goddamn imaginary shirts that we need to sell. You're the artist here, but you're too much of an asshole to make one. There needs to be a fucking black t-shirt, and it needs to be your cartoon fucking face with your stupid little handlebar mustache, and beneath it needs to be a line that says, have you heard about my air fryer? And we would sell 1 million of these. We would sell 1 million of these motherfuckers, dude.
Oh, it's so good, man. Anyway, I made homemade jalapeno poppers. In my homemade jalapeno poppers. I made them in my air fryer.
It's my fault.
It took me 12 minutes. 12 minutes at 400 degrees, and it was delicious. I make stuff all the time. I make it really quick and delicious, and it's so much more healthier than deep frying these things in canola oil or peanut oil.
Into this one. This is the
Get
mistake.
yourself an air fryer.
This is and again, I know, like, if I thought you were making money off this on the sly, I wouldn't even be mad about it. But I know that you're not. I know that you're just. I don't even.
No, I just believe in this product. I believe in this product.
You're when it comes to this, you're a cuck. I don't know what that means, but it feels like it. It sounds like JRE listening guys call people beta cucks. And in this one instance, the air fryer is the alpha, and you are the beta cuck of this fucking relationship. Do you? I feel like you watch your air fryer fuck your wife. And just sit and fuck him, and you just sit in a goddamn.
I sit
table
there and eat chicken.
off.
I eat air fried chicken breast and watch that thing fuck my wife.
That's what it is. Anyway, so let's go back. He's filling up his dead body. And then we cut to old Triple H in the K-Mask getting up and literally fucking the dead body. You know, they do the music. And then at the last line of it is he's holding a can of soup. And Triple H Kane says, quote, "I did it. I screwed your brains out."
We talked about this the first time we covered this angle on this show. I still don't know why this pops up as one of the worst angles of all time. I don't understand. I had a great time.
Funny?
I had a great time watching all that.
What's funny about this is, when it happened, obviously they could never do this now, and they couldn't even do it back then, right?
Right.
But as I'm reading this to you and we're talking about it, that's to me, that's good television. Seriously, I feel like,
oh yeah,
I think, and again, this wasn't Vince Russo. I know wherever Vince Russo was when this aired, his ears were burning because it seems like it was. I think that this show is just eventually going to evolve into us defending Vince Russo, and and the show will be listened to by Vince Russo and nobody else. October 28th, 2002, after a ton of complaints from fans about the necrophilia storyline. There was to be a necrophilia storyline. Triple H came to the ring with a mannequin of Kane, insulting fans that were offended. It was a different time. I loved it. The Hurricane interrupted and showed footage of a hospital. A person wearing a Triple H mask has a number of objects removed from his ass. I forgot about this. God, wrestling used to be so fun. Triple H eventually snaps and attacks the mannequin. Kane makes the save, and Eric Bischoff announces a casket match as the main event. God, this sounds great. Fuck, what happened to this wrestling? I missed this wrestling. In the match, Shawn Michaels was hiding in the casket and helped Kane win the match. This led to a Triple H versus Shawn Michaels feud, and storyline between Kane and Triple H fizzled out. Okay, you know what? I'm going to say it for both of us.
Yeah.
We are officially rescinding Katie Vick, the invitation of Katie Vick into the WWE Hall of Shame that we call Obtuse Angles. It is no longer an obtuse angle.
I agree. It was about time. And it only took us, 6 years and 300 episodes to finally do it. But hey, better late than never, right?
Watch. We're going to go back and watch this, and it's going to be the drizzling shits.
I mean, I think all the pieces are there. Is what it is. Everything you could ever want out of a story, the compelling writing and comedy and that darkness that just kind of takes over. But I think maybe that whole angle just isn't as good in practice as it is maybe on paper. You know what I mean?
There have been plenty of things in wrestling that, like, when you watch it and it's a misfire, it's kind of like watching a bad sketch on SNL. Like, you go, well, I can see how this worked on paper.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. All the components are there. Necrophilia and dark humor and soup and fucking in a funeral home. It's all the things I want out of not just wrestling, out of anything, really.
I could tell you the place I was in my life in 2003, because even though, when I was watching it, I was like, wow, this is going to be even at 17, I knew that. To me, it still wasn't crazy enough that a wrestling angle ended with a man simulatingly having sex with a dead body and its brains coming out of its ears. Yeah. Like looking back on that now, I'm like, that's nuts. That's fucking nuts. Daniel Bryan got fired in 2010 when they were doing the NXT Invasion angle, and they were supposed to, it was supposed to be crazy, right? And they really did it well. The NXT 7, they came in, they tore the mats up, they tore the canvas off the ring, they were beating up Michael Cole. That was fucking awesome. And they took the ring announcer Justin Roberts in part of this melee, and Daniel Bryan was choking him with his own tie. Well, they had just gotten Mattel on, and obviously that's big, big time money. And because they were offended by him choking a man with his tie, they fired Daniel Bryan. Now, he came back, obviously, and he went on to be the biggest goddamn wrestling star of the decade, not named Cena. But they fired him for that. Now, that's the same company where a man fucked the brains out of a mannequin.
That's like when you see an actor or a celebrity do something that offends you, that's like you boycotting his work. Wait, everybody does that anyway. Wait, okay, now it all makes fucking sense.
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. So you're like me. We talked about it before. You can separate the art from the artist.
Yeah.
I still love Chris Benoit
For the most part. Look, man, when I find out that some of my favorite celebrities were Scientologists, admittedly, it got a little fucking hard to take these people seriously. But I can separate the two usually.
I like to think that you're the opposite. Like, you seek Woody Allen out after you read what he did. I got to see this motherfucker's vision. I'm kidding. Hey, seek us out. We're going to end it with that joke at Obtuse Podcast. That's where we are on the social media. Hey, man, check us out on Twitter. Like we said, that's your direct line to this show. Again, the old episodes, if you're listening to us now and you want to go back and check out the wrestling stuff, have the fuck at it. They are fucking rough. Some of them. They're dark. The editing it's non-existent. I think that really obviously stepped up on this show in the past 3 fucking years, but the early stuff, have fun with it. Just don't expect it to be like the news. Seriously, it was a different time. Jeremy was in a rock band traveling across the country at that moment. I was running a gang of Chicanos it was a different, anyway. obtuseangles.libsyn.com. Yes, I was in a gang. Also, like we said, Spotify, Podcast Addict, everywhere else in between. Again, new episodes that are hashtag evergreen, man, meaning just like this. They are not time sensitive. They are content driven. If you want to hear more wrestling stuff, let us know. If you want to hear less wrestling stuff, let us know. And again, don't forget the Facebook page and the YouTube page are the only places you can watch and listen to Obtuse News. Us riffing on the headlines, which is what we're going to be recording right after we get done with this. So we are going to be seeing you back here next Monday. Jeremiah, tell him goodbye.
Goodbye, kids.